You're listening to Agri Culture, a podcast that aims to explore the stories of the people that make up our agricultural industry and culture of farming in Scotland and beyond. On this episode,
the biggest highlight for me is how we all are now compared to how we all were at the start. And it's like we're just a different family.
Seeing the people that you love really grow into who they were meant to be, and flourish from, I'm going to get emotional, sorry guys, it had to happen, from where we were 3 years ago, 10 years ago to where we are now. It's night and day, and it really does come down to the environment we've created and doing the hard thing of living together. I think there's something really unique about a family who can come together after a decade apart and really throw all their baggage on the table and become extremely vulnerable with each other and still not only love each other at the end of the day, but actually like each other at the end of the day.
I just like enjoying sort of bartering our skill sets. Like, for example, using my construction experience, I'll help Alex build the gym, and in turn he'll do a load of soil tests for me with some of our rented land out west. And seeing the progress that comes from all our skill sets helping each other is good to see.
Welcome to part 2 of a 2-part episode series about Steading and Co and the family. I'm joined by Phillip, Konrad, Symone and Alex, a multi-generational family running a regenerative farming business in Fife. We talked about their journey from a dairy farm in Ireland to an arable farm in Canada, and now building a life of health from the ground up on their farm in Scotland. The family have come together after time spent working in different careers, with the common goal of running a sustainable farming business. They are focused on the benefit of regenerative practices to improve soil health, food quality, nutrition and health. I think that's what's key about regenerative farming. I think we could all agree that there isn't a formal definition of what constitutes a regenerative farm. And I think it's really interesting that people will have different opinions about what it means to be regeneratively farming. And I feel that you can pick and choose what suits you and your business. And it sounds like, your early days in this particular farm, but there's a lot of science to back up your decisions, but it's also about picking what suits your farm and your system and what you're trying to produce at the end of the day. And whilst there's overarching principles, as you just said, you might adapt and think, well, actually, we are going to cultivate once every 10 years because we need it to do X, Y, or Z for our cattle. So it's interesting that you already are finding ways that you might adapt your initial thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that as humans, we're too keen to have a prescription and a step-by-step, do this, then do that, then do that. But you said pick and choose. Regenerative agriculture, whatever name you want to give it. The purpose is to pick and choose. You have to pick and choose what suits your context. And your context can be climate, your context can be time, your context can be staffing, your context can be what materials you have. Everything is going to be different for everyone. So if someone's listening to this and be like, I'm just going to do exactly what they're going to do, chances are if it doesn't fit your context, it's not going to work. So you have to do what works with you and with nature and with the livestock. Because if we had a dry summer this year, if we have a really wet summer next year, we won't be able to do what we did last year to get the same results. We always have to be in tune and holistic, I guess, with the approach. And instead of us telling what the livestock and the land is to do, we let the land and the livestock tell us what to do.
Yeah, and I think the underpinning principle is about soil health, and you've all touched on it a few times, and I think everyone would agree that is the main building block of any farm. It's your biggest asset, isn't it? And it's the one with the most potential. So I think, just tweaking what you're doing to the soil. And I'm guessing, Phillip, from Canadian soil, to Fife, there's obviously there's climatic differences, but I'm guessing huge differences in the soil, and you've got to manage that big change for you, and as well as the change in mindset.
Yeah, this is probably the best farm in terms of soil health that we've ever had.
Okay.
Certainly the quality of the soil, the depth of the soil, it's a pleasure to work this farm compared to some of the other farms we had. The farm we grew up on had about 4 inches of topsoil, then it was all shale. It was a hill farm.
Wow. Okay.
If we didn't get rain every week, we burnt up and trying to produce milk from that is very challenging.
Yeah.
We went to large scale in Canada where it was a very clay based soil where it was either mud or concrete, nothing in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah.
So opportunities for working it were, we had to go fast when we did get the opportunity. But we found, like in those kind of soils in Canada, we practice min till and zero till in that situation. The soil we learned that had so many issues with imbalance of trace elements, if just adding to the problem of either concrete soil or mud. But to come back to Fife and work with, again, different soils, but also find them very forgiving soils in a regenerative system where even developing the small amount of biology we have already developed has been a massive help in terms of water penetration, because as we can see, the weather seems to be becoming more extreme. And when we get a downpour, our farm is coping with these downpours better this year than it did when we first took it over. And that's down to the soil biology and the structure and allowing our grasses to grow rather than graze them off very quickly when they're very short. Like little practices like this. I think it was Alan Williams had said some of his talks that we went to lately that if you have to do a negative, i.e. ploughing, follow it with a positive or as many positives as you can. Go away, just leave it alone, the synthetics, leave it out. Add biology in the form of extracts and teas, compost, adaptive grazing. Let the grass grow tall rather than nipping it off short. Just add the positives, keep stacking the positives, and so when you do have to have a negative effect like the ploughing, it won't be as detrimental and will recover faster. So we have found that this soil here is extremely forgiving. Any amount of positives, it seems to react quickly to them, and it's paying us dividends.
And Konrad, you're bringing the livestock in, which is obviously adding different nutrients and presumably helping boost the soil biology that you were talking about there a minute ago, Alex. And you mentioned running it sort of with a ranching method. So for those of us that are used to the traditional Scottish farming and not familiar with that term, how would you describe ranching? What do you mean by that?
Ranching is basically just a North American cultural term for a cattle operation, but done with using horses as the tools of management.
Yeah.
So growing up with horses in Ireland, I always enjoyed it, loved it. We kind of came away from horses a little bit when we moved to Canada because our kind of sole enterprise was grain farming. So we kept a couple of pets over there, or kept a couple of horses as pets over there. And then when I moved to England to do construction, obviously I was completely out of horses and everything, but I always enjoyed them. And then coming here and kind of going down this regenerative path, I mean, our approach to all animals really is stress-free, no violence, no aggression, completely stress-free. And I've been one of those cattlemen that's been there with a stick, hooping and hollering and on an ATV and tearing down the field. Like, great fun for a kid on a quad, right? But when you look at what it's actually doing to your cattle and doing to your management, it's high stress. It's very inefficient. So I just thought, to be more complementary to my approach to livestock and to our land and to this whole sort of eco-positive system we're trying to work in, let's go away from the engine. Let's go away from the rubbers on the field. Let's get the hooves back in there. And let's thought, all right, we've been in horses before. We'll get back in horses again. And part of sort of the Toll Ranches Cattle Company's main mission is to essentially, it's a big one, but it's essentially to regenerate the 1.5 million acres in Scotland that is being called unproductive and uninhabitable. Mm-hmm. 1.5 million acres of rangeland up here that could be completely regenerated by cattle, just managing them in a natural way of, graze, move. And the only way you're going to get up there is on a horse. You ain't getting up there on trucks and ATVs. So part of it's all of those reasons that come together really. And what inner child doesn't want to be a cowboy, So, and it's going back to the heritage of Scotland. Like, Scotland was famous for its drovers of taking cattle across the Highlands. So again, it's nothing new. it's, you know, it started over here, it went across the seas, and that's just coming back again. So I think it's just a softer, more complementary way to approach cattle management.
I've got clients. I'm in the Edinburgh office and work across the Lothians, and I've got clients that still got drovers roads running through their
Yeah,
farm, and you can still see them. And yeah, I suppose I've never really thought about it that cowboying started in Scotland and moved over to Canada.
in fact,
Um,
cowboying is actually the most un-American thing because I know
really,
we all associated cowboying with Texas and stuff, but
yeah,
cowboying started in the likes of Scotland. It started in the North African plains and then came up through Spain, and Spain brought it across to Mexico, and Mexico brought it to American. So it's deep in the Scottish culture as well of cattle droving and cowboying in that sense.
yeah.
So
And I
it's
guess
and
over here we had I've got a wonderful picture of my grandpa standing with the big Shire horses.
Yeah.
And you know, he was a teenager the last time, and he remembers the last horse leaving and the first tractor arriving. And
it's sad.
it is sad, and it's a
Yeah.
lovely picture of him. And his brother actually emigrated to Canada. I think he was one of the ones that took the pound boat journey over with his wife. There was 7 of them on the farm, and he was one of the youngest, so he went over and to Alberta and started his own ranch over there. And I went over
Oh,
to
I
visit
bet.
him before he died, and just seeing him on the horses. I've not grown up with horses, but they slightly terrify me, to be honest. I'd rather take on a cow than a horse, but seeing him on the horses, it just seems such a natural way to move livestock
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And
Completely.
obviously they've got the infrastructure for it. You know, the corrals are,
Mm.
built to be managing cattle with horses. I don't think you'd get a horse anywhere in our cattle handling facility comfortably. We've
No, well,
got,
thankfully we've built our corral system to complement to it. Keep horses in there, so we're good on
yeah.
that front. But
And as you say, that sort of low stress, I think you could move around most Scottish farms and see a slightly raging farmer on a quad
yeah,
with slight also raging wife falling behind on foot with a stick, getting shouted at for being in the wrong gate. This isn't me, by the way.
exactly.
This
Yeah.
happens to me every week. Always in the wrong gate at the wrong time. So we laugh about it, and I always say that there's the two things my husband and I argue about is how much he works, and then when we have to handle livestock, because there's always a breakdown in communication. And I like that idea of the horse is in tune with you
Mm.
and knows what you're trying to do, in the way that we use sheepdogs, I guess.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
trained to understand the movements of the livestock, and they know what you're trying to do, and the cattle probably respond to that better, I'm guessing.
It's exactly it. I mean, cattle and equine are both flight animals, so they work completely off pressure and release, and that's exactly how we approach it. It's just pressure and release. There's a lot of times with our cattle, I don't have to do anything. I just call them, and they just come running because they just know, okay, well, he's not a threat, so I can go to him. It's comfortable to go towards him. So it's a far more efficient and less stressful way of dealing with it.
We've even had some cattle fall asleep in the corral. What do you
Yeah,
call it? Weigh
yeah.
day.
So we weigh our cattle, our store cattle, we weigh every week just to see how they're performing on what areas, what pastures. And we have cattle who actually, let alone fall asleep, they try to come back in through the squeeze chute because they're so comfortable in our whole corral system that they want to come back in after they've been dealt with. And it's incredible to see. And it's kind of annoying actually, because you want them to move on and go back out to the collecting yard so we can get the new cattle through, but they're just sitting there chewing their cud, having a good time. So it's beautiful to see, though. It really is.
And you mentioned at the start there that you're trying to sort of expand that into other farms in Scotland. Is that right? You're trying to sort of do like as a contracting service, or?
Yeah, we do offer contracting services. We offer sort of management contracting. So if somebody wants to go down the sort of regenerative adaptive grazing route, we can manage their herd for them.
Okay.
Or if somebody just wants a consultant on it, we can consult with them on it if they want to get started.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something we can offer to people.
Are you finding that people in the area that you're in Fife are receptive to what you're doing? Do you feel that neighbours are looking over the fence and questioning in a supportive way, or what the hell are they doing sort of way?
Well, there's actually already quite a lot of people doing it. Maybe not sort of as intensely as I'm doing it, but there is people doing it, and there is people on the right track of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Are they looking over the fence? I don't know, to be honest. I think the sort of typical reaction to when I talk to most conventional farmers around here about mob grazing is takes too long, too expensive, takes too long.
Yeah.
It doesn't really. I spent last summer running 126 stores in this mob grazing, moving them every day, et cetera, and I spent when I added up my actual working hours of moving fences and checking cattle and weighing cattle, it was only 75 hours across 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
So it's not really that much. Like if you plan it and you just have it set up that you can, that it's efficient, that you don't have to go in there and start moving all the fences every day. You just 10 minutes to move cattle.
Yeah.
If they're moved every day, or even twice a day, or even 3-4 times a day, they know what they have to do. They see and they go, okay, I'm going to move for you. And you just open up the reel. They come on in. You close it over. That's it.
You mentioned weighing your livestock there, Konrad. How important is collecting data to you, like weighing livestock? And Alex, you mentioned about analysing the soil. How important is data collection to your business?
It's pretty important, not only from an animal performance aspect, but also understanding the finances of the operation too. I think the biggest thing on the finance front is understanding your cost of gain. So I need to understand how much it costs me to put kilos on these animals, and therefore I can work out budgets. I can work out what's my minimal selling cost, et cetera, et cetera. So even from a financial aspect, it's extremely important. I speak to a lot of farmers who don't know how much it costs to have cattle on their operation, and they're running blind, and you just think, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know how much you're making off these cattle, or how much you're spending on these cattle, et cetera, et cetera. But also from a performance standpoint, and then going into a soil health standpoint, because we weigh them weekly, and because I track every pasture they're in and how long they've been in there for, and measure all the amount of feed they've consumed in that pasture. We measure the grass before, we measure the grass after. I can tell exactly which ones are performing, why they're performing, or why they're not performing. It verifies any health concerns we may have of cattle. If I've got 50 stores that are doing great and doing 1 kilo a day, but then there's this one that's doing, negative 0.2, well, there's obviously something wrong with that store. So for all these reasons, it's completely vital for our management of cattle. If they're underperforming in one area, well, then I'll say to Alex, let's go test that paddock. Let's go soil test that paddock, or see what's going on there. Why are they not doing well in this particular part of the field, but they're doing better in that particular part of the field? And then you just start to, it's problem solving, basically.
Yeah.
It's problem solving with information.
Yeah. And I guess you're right. You can't figure out what the problem is if you don't have any data to back it up. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And we have a drone that we used to use for checking crops out in Canada, and even doing an aerial observation. There's things we notice from the sky that you'd never see on the ground.
Yeah.
And you wonder how many farmers have actually ever seen their farm from above. Probably zero. So so even that has, and we can even see manure distribution. If there's lots of manure in one area of the field, well, why are they all going over there? What's over in that corner that's so exciting? So it all adds to, every single detail adds to the bigger picture.
Yeah, and somebody said earlier about the technology that we have now that allows, I think it was you, Phillip, that said we're not necessarily, or you're not necessarily doing anything new here, but you've got the science and the technology now that allows you to, make these decisions along with a gut feeling of this is the right thing to do. But just the technology, like you're saying there, Konrad, of, a drone, it's a relatively new bit of technology that's now affordable for a lot of people to, just look at their business in a different way.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any reason why someone shouldn't know the business like the back of their hand. Like you said, there's just too many opportunities and tools and technology that allow you to do that. So,
yeah,
and you have to do that if you want to do it on a small scale as well. Absolutely. You have to be in tune with the details.
Yeah, it's about the quality, not the quantity. You can kind of get away with some things if you've got this big quantity of scale, but I think with this sort of smaller scale, you really have to look at the details of it.
Yeah, especially, if you're running 12 cattle, if there's something wrong with one, that's a big impact on the herd as a whole because it's such a big proportion of your whole herd.
Yeah, 10% of the herd sick.
Yeah, exactly.
Something else that it allows us to do is create a lot of transparency around our methods of farming. I mean, there's so much language and branding around food these days. You don't know what you're really getting. So what our data allows us to do is create that transparency and inform our consumers of exactly what they're getting and why they got it the way they did and why we did the practices that we did. And we're all about transparency. I think there needs to be more transparency in the food system because there's a lot of misleading messaging out there. And so one of our biggest things was to try and inform and allow people to learn and grow with us as we learn and grow on this journey as well, creating this new but not new food system that's just going back to the old ways.
Do you think people are, your consumers, do you think people are taking more of an interest in where their food comes from?
Definitely. I think we're all seeing this big boom in health interest coming from different angles. And again, I don't want to keep going on about COVID, but I think COVID was a big catalyst for this, of people realizing, and like, what are we eating? What is our health? Where and taking their health into their own hands, very much like we did with going back into this business, this family business together. Yeah, I think it's only going to grow in interest for people. And I was at a health food conference there in September, and just the scale that was being delivered at, you could see that there is a growing interest for people wanting to know where their food comes from, how it's farmed, and also the impact it has on their health, for their health. And we're seeing, I work at the Health Informatics Centre at the University of Dundee, where they do a lot of health research, and we're so sick, as a generation,
Yeah.
as a human race, we're so sick, and we don't know why we're sick. It's chronic illness that is just raging through nations, and there's no real cure for it. And I think because it really does come down to our food, and we're eating a lot of ultra processed food.
I think you're so right. There's so many people now suffering from, an underlying health condition, and as we all know, the NHS struggling to cope with a lot of these conditions. And I think we're seeing a bit of a transition point now where we're kind of all at breaking point, not feeling our best. The systems that we've got in place to help people when they're not well are maybe not coping as well as they used to, or in the way that they should. And I do think, I take a lot of interest in my own health and diet and fitness and things as well. But I think there is a lot of information out there now for people that want to try and take more control of their own health. You read now, instead of eating 5 fruit and veg, it's 30 different plant foods per week, to try and work on gut health. And I think, gut health is a bit like looking after your soil, isn't it? It's your foundation of your body, and what you're putting into your body starts in your gut, doesn't it? So, producing nutritious food and putting that into your body, and the variety that we need to get the nutrients is really important.
It's yeah, because so I'm not too sure if you've heard, but there's a high prevalence of leaky gut across the population. And
Yeah.
just like you said, taking care of your gut health is like the building block of taking care of the soil. But if you go back even further, it is the soil. The soil grows the food. The food gives nutrients to the body and the gut. But with all of those synthetics and chemicals that we've been used to and expecting on our food for the past 20 years, we now have this leaky gut syndrome coming in, because it still remains as a residue on the plants. You can only wash your fruit and veg so often. You can only clean the grain that goes into the flour as much as possible. It will still always be in there. And it's just those little nanograms that are left as deposits in your body just build up over time, because the half-life is years. It's not a week, it's not 2, it just lives there for years. So it really is. So the building block is like, yeah, take care of your gut health, and then you'll take care of yourself. But it goes back even further. It's take care of the soil will take care of your gut, and the gut will take care of you.
I think, this all sounds fantastic, but we're also in a bit of a cost of living crisis as well. And for a lot of people, worldwide, but, even in the UK, getting access to affordable, healthy food is a challenge. Do you think there's more that we can do as an industry to ensure that we're getting that healthy food to people that really need it?
Yeah, so I think there's two ways I want to answer this. First one, there's lots more. So it is becoming more mainstream and popular now to get food from the farm rather than from your big chain supermarkets, as people become more aware. Right now, we're seeing a lot of the early adapters go into this, the people that jump onto the new thing each time. But now we're starting to see some of the more latent adapters come in and be like, whether it's like the whole fridge isn't from a farm, but they've now started getting milk from a farm.
Yeah.
Even that one thing is it's not all or nothing. Even that one thing, you're not only helping yourself because the milk's going to be less processed, it's straight from the farm, it's lower food miles, but it's also benefiting the local farmer and your local community because you're buying from them. You're not getting your milk from a dairy in Belgium or France or so it helps with that as well. Yes. So and there's lots of apps linking people with those farms as well. But when it comes to the affordability, yeah, you might look at right now, probably the most common one for people to see is just the difference between an organic bananas and just normal bananas that are in the shop, right? And it may be 30p more, 40p more. And each time over time that adds up on a monthly food shop. But I say this to my clients as well. I have a few online clients and as well as in-person clients, but you either pay for it now or you pay for it later. So it's like, are you going to pay that extra 30p for your hopefully more nutrient dense veg and bananas? Or are you going to wait until you're 60, 70 and then you then have to pay for your prescriptions, for your medicines, for your supplements? That's a hell of a lot more expensive than just paying that little extra for the food, which then goes into the farmer's pocket. And maybe some are thinking it's like, yeah, well, I get my prescriptions for free off the NHS. It's being paid for somewhere. Your taxes are going towards that. If 10 million people didn't need to take as many prescriptions or supplements, that's a lot more money for the NHS to put into other things, which we can solve a lot of just through eating the right things and getting the right things in your body.
There will be some people that just can't afford to make any choice at all, and they've just got to put food on the plates of their families. And I really empathize with those people. It must be incredibly difficult, but for a lot of us, we do have some choice. It might be the choice between, okay, we're going to spend a bit more on organic food this week, or we're going to go and try and source something local and cut back on somewhere else to make that work. But I guess it's all a balancing act, as you say. You might end up paying for it further down the line. And I think if we're all trying to work on health as a nation, looking at food is really important. You said it earlier, you can't outrun a bad diet, and just working on our health and fitness together. And I guess being a health and fitness coach, you're seeing people coming to you for help, and that's the chance for you to educate them on food.
Yeah. And saying like healthy food doesn't have to be expensive. Like the beef we're selling isn't astronomically more expensive than just the normal beef you can get in any large chain supermarket. It's just where you're investing is that right now, because it's not as mainstream as it's going to be in the near future, you do have to invest a little bit of time to search and look.
There's also the point of the food. For example, our beef will be more nutritionally dense than what you'll get from your daily supermarket or your meat saver value packs, whatever. So you'll actually have to eat less of it. So therefore, you're already decreasing your cost because you're eating better quality food, which fills you up longer and gives you the nutrients that your body's craving, rather than eating essentially empty food, if that makes sense.
When you're talking about beef there, why do you feel your beef is more nutritionally dense than the other Scotch beef on the supermarket shelf?
Just the way it's raised, I would say, because going back to the point of soil and gut health, what our cattle are eating and what they're getting from the soil will be the same, is therefore increasing their health of their own gut, therefore adding and retaining the nutrients in their meat. Same as if we're eating healthy food, we're retaining the nutrients in our gut.
Yeah.
The key word, education, self-education. I think people need to take the time, and that's a difficult one because everybody's rushed off their feet now, but take a little bit of time each day, get into a habit of investigating food and nutrient density. and I think they will be pleasantly surprised at what the amount of work is going into finding nutrient density and the right levels of what's going on in that field. But if they can take that time, it'll be time well. It'll pay back dividends because, I think, as Konrad and Alex has touched on it, eating nutrient-dense food, you will need less of it. I take an example of your white sliced bread compared to maybe your sourdough bread. If it'd been interesting to do a comparison, take your white slice, eat it for a couple of days, see how much have you eaten, price it out. Take a sourdough, nutrient-dense sourdough, eat whatever you're comfortable eating of that, and price it out. We can quantify these things very easily at home. But it's all about self-education.
Yeah, and I think we have to remember there was this lot of focus on creating a lot of consumerism and over-consumerism around food back in the day to drive up sales, and we lost the focus on the purpose of food. And the purpose of food is to drive our basic bodily functions in a well-mannered way that we're healthy. And you, like Phillip and the boys just said, like, you don't need actually as much as we've been told that we've need in the past to do that well. And that's why there's this great shift and re-education in what nutrient dense food or actual real food is, opposed to ultra processed food and the impacts it has on you. So it's I think it's going to be a slow education, but it is happening. And it's a refocus and a re-language on what food actually is and what its purpose actually is. Instead of it being a commodity, it's really our basic source of living as opposed to a commodity.
Alex, you also, alongside helping run the farm, you do your well-being stuff. How have you found? Do you feel that farming contributes to your well-being yourself? Do you find that being involved in the industry and understanding food is contributing? Being in that farming environment is contributing to your own well-being.
1000%. You'd think working in the health and fitness industry for the majority of your adult life that you'd have it all figured out. Probably everyone looks at every trainer or gym instructors or coach and just thinks they have it all figured out, but it couldn't have been further from the truth. Like, I was training 5-6 times a week. Like, this is me personally. Training 5-6 times a week, that should be enough. Like, if you do that, everything else should take care of itself. But although on the outside I looked like I was in physical shape, my mental health, living in a city, concrete jungle, trying to escape for 45-minute hikes or hour-long hikes into the Rockies every weekend to try and get some bit of nature, it drove me down a darker path than I would have liked, where there would have been a lot of drinking on weekends to celebrate life or whatever excuse you came up from it. But now, since moving to the farm, I get my hands in the soil every single day. If I'm not getting covered in duck poo, I'm getting covered in horse poo or cow manure. But all of these things, although they don't sound ideal, whereas living in a nice house in a downtown city should be the way to do it. I found being in touch now with nature, having control of how the food is growing, I think it's more seeing the positive impacts. If we were doing this and we saw everything like regress and get worse, I don't think our mental health, all of us, I don't think any of our mental health would be good. I think it's because we're doing it and we're farming in this way and we're seeing things flourish. That's what's contributing to a huge increase in our mental health and well-being.
I think both Symone and Konrad had mentioned that you were both suffering with stress and, fed up in your current roles. Do you both feel the same, Symone?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think everyone has noticed the massive difference in my emotional and mental well-being. It's taken me years to get to a point where I could manage that well, and I don't think if we didn't do the move and I wasn't in this environment where, you know, you're outside more than inside, you're eating as well as you can eat, and you're exercising, I definitely would not have got to a space where I am more level-headed, shall we say, and pleasant to be around.
And Konrad, how do you feel your life has changed since being on the farm as opposed to working construction and living in cities?
Oh, it's just going back to what I always knew, really, and it's a huge relief. This old boy wasn't built for living in the city, so it's nice to get back to where I came from, you know.
Yeah. And I guess as we bring the podcast to a close, a question for all of you, and we'll start with you, Philip, is how have you found working and living as a family together? Have you got any particular memories that are nice for you?
I better make it up. No, it's I would say definitely a challenge because I've been, apart for a decade to suddenly all living under the one roof. Like we all have our space under the one roof, but effectively we're still all together. Incredibly, it's both sides. It's fantastic and it's wonderful to be together. And when it's difficult, it's very difficult. And when it's fantastic, it's absolutely, up there. Because you can't replace that impromptuous cup of tea, at the spur of the moment. And that chat, it's like the impromptu party. They're the best.
Yeah.
And you can't organize that quick cup of tea at the kitchen table, at 2:00 in an afternoon, and it just randomly all arrive in the kitchen at the same time to discuss whatever, be it work, be it social. Those moments, I cherish those moments. Apart from the work aspect, where we're all using our own talents to further our livelihood, and make our life better. There's two bonuses. One is those impromptu moments, that cup of tea, and the second is bringing all our talents together and seeing those talents flourish, and for a common end goal.
It is those little moments that mean the biggest thing. I asked you if there was any standout moment, and it's really nice that the standout moments are the daily cups of tea. And I think, that might not be daily, but, it's the little moments. And I'm sure there are lots of times where people get frustrated and, somebody's got an idea that others don't agree with. But, just being able to come together is lovely. I'll come back to you, Symone, when you've composed yourself. Alex, being coming into the family, you've obviously been in the family for a long time now. How have you found it coming back to live together? What's been the highlights for you?
Honestly, I think the first year was the biggest challenge, but then I think that kind of gave us all the foundation to springboard from that. So I'd say probably the biggest highlight for me is how we all are now compared to how we all were at the start. And it's like we're just a different family come year 3 than we were year 0.
Yeah.
Or we kind of had no clue where we all kind of fitted in. We all had these big life changes and we're just trying to figure it out with everyone on top of each other. And it's nice to see that we've kind of all figured it out. And I think the biggest thing for me now is that I get to raise a son in an environment that has so much love and support that this would have never happened if we never made this decision to go and do this all together. And that was the big motivating factor for me. Now we just have a little boy running around who can go to his uncle, he can go to his granny, he can go to his grandpa, he can go to his mum, his dad, whenever he wants. And that was something that was lacking in my life, and I'm very happy to be able to give that to my son's future life.
You're going to set Symone and I off again. That's lovely. Symone, how have you found, coming to Scotland and living together?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I wish I went first so I wouldn't be crying through this. Yeah, to echo really both what my dad and Alex said, I think it's seeing the people that you love really grow into who they were meant to be, and flourish from, I'm going to get emotional. Sorry, guys. It had to happen. From where we were 3 years ago, 10 years ago to where we are now, it's night and day. And it really does come down to the environment we've created and doing the hard thing of living together. I think there's something really unique about a family who can come together after a decade apart and really throw all their baggage on the table and become extremely vulnerable with each other and still not only love each other at the end of the day, but actually like each other at the end of the day, to want to continue growing something that we all really, really believe in and have really lived in every being of ourselves and lived through our own different experiences to bring those different experiences together for that single mission. I think it's the best gift in life, really, to be able to do that with people you love and to do something that you love.
I guess mine's a little less emotional than the rest of them. I just like enjoying sort of bartering our skill sets. Like, for example, using my construction experience, I'll help Alex build the gym, and in turn, he'll do a lot of soil tests for me with some of our rented land out west. And seeing the progress that comes from all our skill sets helping each other is good to see.
It sounds like you're really all pulling together, and as you said, Philip, just having all those different skill sets is fantastic. And I think for anyone listening that's maybe got children in the farming family, if they've had the opportunity to go off and do something else first before they come back to the business, I think that's invaluable. Whether it's fashion, oil and gas, fitness industry, construction, all those skills can then be brought back to the business. And I think that's probably where your strengths have lied, that you've had that time away and you've all done different things, and it's made you all come back to where you started. So that, I think that's a lovely point to finish the podcast on. And hopefully you're not too far away from me. I'll maybe pop up and visit one day and see what you're doing. And I just think it sounds great. Just that sort of idyllic family life. I didn't ask you about any of the challenges, you'll notice. We may have gone on for some time, but it's lovely to hear how you're all pulling together. And I wish you all the best of luck for the future.
Thank
you very much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
If you missed the first part, you can catch the first part of this episode series right now, wherever you normally listen. If you'd like to get in touch or find out more about Steading and Co, you can find links in the show notes. This episode was presented by me, Mary Jane Lawrie, produced by Kerry Hammond, and edited by Cameron Walk in association with the Scottish Government.
The Farm Advisory Service Podcast. Audio advice on livestock, crops and soils, environment, rural business, and more. Brought to you in association with the Scottish Government.